Welcome to the Microdosing for Healing podcast. I'm your host, Casey Garrett, and together we'll be discovering and learning from inspiring voices of healers, medicine keepers, and visionaries. Every episode, we'll explore the world of health, vibrant wellness, and natural medicine for a new era of human society. Welcome to today's episode. All right. Welcome back, everybody, to the podcast. Today, I'm so excited to talk about this topic that we're going to dive into today with two of my favorite people. So please welcome Missy Toy Ozeas and Catherine Andrews, two of my favorite witches, closet witches, less closeted witches. And today I was inspired to bring them on to talk about the topic of practical magic. This year, more than any other, I'm seeing on my applications for microdosing programs, spiritual development, spiritual discovery, spiritual connection. Everybody is so opening to that right now, and they don't know where to begin. They can see people who have it are increasingly open about it, and they're like, how do I develop this in myself? And two, this year, things are shifting so deeply from a notion of spirituality that's housed in religion, right? That's housed in a church, that's housed in an external figure, a guru outside of ourselves. We're really reawakening to the idea that spirituality lives within us. We all have access to it, and we have access to it every moment of our lives. So I'm so excited to dive into this subject with these two today. They have so much wisdom to share. So Catherine, Missy, thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much for having us. I can't wait for this conversation.
Awesome. Catherine, let's start with you, because I know so many people that I work with who know they're sensitive. They know they're highly empathic. They know they're a little bit magical, are also deeply sensitive people. So lots of times when they're approaching earth medicines and psychedelics, they're a little cautious more than other people because of their sensitivity. So I'd love to dive into this subject for you, given that's who you work with in your community primarily.
Yes. Well, Missy and I work with very similar communities, and we've partnered in many ways as well. And one of the biggest things that we see in our beautiful, sensitive folks is a strong kind of good girl conditioning, which is a concern when it comes to earth medicine, because they're worried, are they going to get in trouble? Am I allowed to do this? How do I know if this is right for me? So one of the things that our beautiful, sensitive, empathic folks who are deeply magical and spiritual struggle with is kind of outsourcing their own power, especially around earth medicine. They worry they don't have permission, is this going to be right? So there is this aspect of, am I going to get in trouble? That can come from our audiences when they first encounter earth medicine and become curious about it. So the deconditioning of the good girl and empowering them to trust their own intuition, know their own selves, know if this medicine is right for them at this time, is something that I definitely work with them too. And then the sensitivity is a real thing too. I have, many deeply feeling, deeply sensitive, deeply physically sensitive people who come to psilocybin or earth medicine, and they are concerned about the physical effects, the spiritual effects, the emotional effects. So sometimes it's just a matter of starting them slow a little bit and helping them understand how the medicine works, that they can start on smaller amounts, and helping them understand the emotional impacts too. Because what I find in my audience is that the psilocybin and the earth medicine, it really works. One of the first things that it does is often there's a grief release that can happen, because my clients and my audience tend to be, because they have such big hearts and tender hearts, a lot of what they have been doing throughout their whole lives, whether they've been conscious of it or not, is repressing their grief, protecting their heart. So there is usually this element in sensitive folks, I think, of a grief release that can come up when you first start working with earth medicine. So it's just explaining the context to them, especially around that, how to prepare themselves, how to know, because sometimes around earth medicine, there's this messaging where it's you're going to feel, and you don't do this at all, Casey, or your community, but it's like, you're going to have so much focus. You're going to feel amazing. Your mood is going to be great. And I'm like, okay, yes. And sometimes, there is like an emotional release that comes up. I know Missy and I went through your program, and maybe we can speak to this later, but like we were crying a lot. Like the first time that we ever encountered earth medicine, because there had to be this release from our big and beautiful hearts. So there is that aspect, but really one of the things that I see people worry most about is like the good girl conditioning, and that somebody's going to come and they're going to get in trouble, and they didn't have permission to do this. So a lot of it is working through the context of helping them understand that they can trust their intuition, and they can trust that if the medicine is calling to them, it's right for them too.
Thank you. Beautiful. Missy, I know for you, similarly, when you came to practice already quite gifted in your spiritual gifts, a lot of the gifted clairvoyant, psychic, sensitives that I work with, they wonder, like, is there really anywhere to go further with this, right? And they're kind of worried about it impacting their gifts, altering their gifts. Am I going to be able to channel the same way? Am I going to have the same connection with my clients if I work with medicine? So I'd love for you, given that was totally your experience coming to practice, your feelings around that.
Yeah, I think that was my number one thing that I was worried about, because being clairvoyant is my biggest gift and what I use in my practice. So I was afraid, well, I start seeing things, well, my connection stopped. But what I actually found was exactly what Catherine said. When I tune into earth medicine, really, it's a heart chakra opener. And what I didn't realize until I went into your program was that I had so much grief that was closing off my heart, because when I was young, I had gifts that weren't maybe like acceptable. So I had a lot of grief for that little girl who knew she was here for a reason, but had to close it off. And I didn't even really quite realize how deep that went. Because when I went into the program, I never thought, I'm coming here because I have grief. I didn't think that. But when I came into the program, when I started microdosing, all I did was cry. I just cried everywhere. And it was really wonderful, though, because that was the grief and the layer I wasn't able to access on my own. And once that happened, actually, I had a huge connection to actually my ancestors. And I think you saw that happening in the program. And I had this beautiful moment where I went on a walk and I invited my ancestors in because I was working through a specific limiting belief. And I literally heard my grandfather, who has passed, and he said, I must be agreeable for all of us to be safe. And that was like actually the magic that I needed, because that was sort of what I was going through, but I hadn't distilled down the exact belief and I didn't know where it came from. And we ended up having this beautiful conversation. So my connection to my ancestors really grew. Even though I was already connected to my ancestors, it grew in a much deeper way that I had to embody so that I could then help my clients with their ancestors and things like that. So it really opened another layer that I didn't even know I needed or was possible.
I love that. And yes, I very much remember that. Beautiful. I'd love for you two to share as much as you'd like. So one of the things I think is most powerful people who have this sense that there is more, and they're kind of just approaching the door to opening up their spiritual gifts, connection to their guides, connection to their ancestors and angels. I'd love for you guys to go back in time, before you had a fully landed in your own spiritual gifts, and share kind of how that happened in your own life and kind of what led you up to the work that you're doing now today for people and with people. Catherine, you want to start?
Yeah, I'm just kind of laughing and smiling because this is about 10 years ago or so. And I'm like, I was not a spiritual person. So for anybody, a little bit about me is I'm a tarot reader. I'm a feng shui consultant. I am an energy worker. I work with highly sensitive souls. And, spirituality is like a massive, huge part of my life right now. But about 10 years ago, I was in my mid to late 30s, and I was a very traditional corporate Washington, D.C., like career gal kind of person. I had no spirituality, no religion, no spirituality, not much access with nature. I was really just focused on like doing well in my job and getting money and getting like that VP title or whatever. And so what happened for me was I started doing the Artist's Way book by Julia Cameron. And so journaling opened up a lot of portals. And then on a lark, I picked up a tarot deck for fun. And I was like, whatever, tarot is kind of cool. Like, but it's just like, I'm just doing this for fun. It's not like a thing, that like shows you your gifts, or you're not talking to anything larger than you. You're just kind of reflecting. And then what happened is like, something started talking to me through my tarot deck. And I was like, LOL, what is happening? I'm nervous. I'm scared, because I could clearly see that there were repeating messages that were coming through my tarot deck, that no matter how hard I shuffled, no matter how hard I tried to pull different cards, that there was something larger talking to me. And so that was kind of the beginning, the initiation of kind of my more spiritual gifts. And even though I was a very like logical, corporate, traditional person, I've always been a very curious person, and I've always wanted to know more about how the world worked. And so I just decided to kind of follow it. I kept doing tarot. I kept books would fall into my path, or people, and I just decided to keep exploring until, it became quite clear to me there's something larger than me who's trying to speak to me and guide me, and that wants the best for me. And then I was like, here I am. I'm a spiritual person. I'm the only spiritual person in my family. I'm the only spiritual person in my friend group, And so there were struggles with that too, like in sort of owning it and navigating that, coming from such a traditional, like logical background where people don't really appreciate this, or really believe in the same things that I believe in. But it's been the most beautiful path. And then I just kind of kept following and finding different modalities to work in. And, here we are today.
Love it. Missy, how about you?
Yeah, when I was little, I could see things. So I saw my grandmother after she passed. I would pass mirrors and I would see things. But I learned really early on that wasn't acceptable. And I think the reason Catherine and I get along so well is I also grew up in a very practical, grounded family, but had no belief in any of this. So I had no exposure to this. So I just shut it down. But, like the more you shut it down, the more like things kind of come up. So most of my childhood and teen and 20s, I tried to shut it down, but then I'd go into a hotel and then I'd like see ghosts. And I'm like, did anybody else see this? No, right? I had to try to shut it down. And then it really wasn't, I worked in television for decades, and it really wasn't until the universe said, hey, Missy, you better focus on this. So I tore my calf muscle, and I was on disability, and I wasn't able to work. And it was in that time period I really started reevaluating. And that's actually when I upped my meditation practice. And I really asked the universe, and I really committed to asking the universe, show me who I am. Because when we ask the universe will show us, because the universe wants to use us as a vessel. And we're all being used in different ways. So anybody who listens to this can use this. So I asked meditation. It took 4 months, so it was kind of a long time. But I heard a voice, and it said, you are a healer. And that was like the last thing I thought that I would be or I would hear. And then the next work is about how does your mind, come up with like the rationale for that? How does my mind meet where my heart is and what I know to be true? And that just led me on my path of learning different modalities and learning to accept who I am.
Love it. So fun. So fun. I'm going to exploit your practicality, both of you a little bit and ask you. That's one of the questions I receive the most now is I'm coming to earth medicine practice, but what are some of the other modalities that I can work with and study? And both of you draw from so many different tools and modalities. It's one of the things I love about following you both so much. I'm like, what are they up to now? And so I'd love for you to share, if someone is coming and they're kind of brand new to spirituality, what are some of your favorite things that you have experienced that you bring into your practice? Catherine, let's start with you.
Yeah, well, if you're brand new, I mean, the most valuable practice I can give you is just spend time alone and in quiet, and ideally in nature, if possible. You're already intuitive. You know, if you're coming along to this world, you're getting the sense that everybody has these sorts of gifts, right? They show up differently for everybody. But if you're feeling the call to learning more about your intuition, spending time alone is the best way to do that. Walking through nature, turning off the noise of podcasts or other people's opinions, and just allowing yourself to be with your own voice for once is such a important practice. I mean, for me, tarot and journaling are two huge modalities that, they kind of kicked off my spiritual awakening as I spoke about, but they're the ones that I rely on most today. And anybody can pick up a tarot deck. You don't have to, there's a weird persistent myth that you have to be like gifted your first tarot deck. And I'll just let everybody know, I bought my first tarot deck off an Instagram ad like 10 or 12 years ago or something. So get yourself a tarot deck and just pull a card a day. And then, the morning pages style of journaling that Julia Cameron taught is a classic. It's just, kind of as soon as you can when you wake up. It doesn't have to be right away, but sometime in the morning, just journal, stream of consciousness for, 10, 15, 20 minutes, and really not with any sort of perceived outcome, just to see what's there. You're sort of meeting yourself on the page. What are you thinking? What are you feeling? What are you seeing? And I think, for me and Missy, one of the most important things we like to guide our clients and students to is this inner authority of spirituality, right? Like, so when you spend time alone, when you spend time on the page, when you pull a tarot card and you ask yourself, what do I think this card is trying to tell me? You're discovering this sense of intuition and these gifts that you have that they've always been within you. You just need to kind of find these tools that bring you back home to who you are.
Beautiful. Missy, anything you'd add to that?
Yeah, I think walks are a great way where your thinking mind can kind of get out of the way because your body is moving. And then setting the intention to ask your guides to walk with you. So I have different people walk with me every day. So sometimes I have my inner child because something's coming up for me, and I'll take that walk with the inner child. We can say you can listen or see, or maybe you feel emotions in your body while you're with your inner child. But having that conversation, even what do I need to know? What do you need today? You can do that with your ancestors. Another day with your inner child. Maybe you're working on past lives. So I invite a past life version of myself to walk with me. So creating that connection to all parts of yourself, or just walking with the universe and saying, what do I need to know today? And that's another really great way. Or how can I serve today? Like, how do you want to use me today? Like, I love that too, as a great way to start your day.
Oh, beautiful. Both of you. Wonderful. I'd love for you two to reflect on, I was reflecting back on my own journey and healing, and I wanted to be in the healing arts since I was a young child. And through my own childhood experience, I lost my father quite young in life. And so I started therapy and healing modalities very young. But I realize now in hindsight, I had a lot of physical, mental symptoms from that trauma that only resolved when I brought spirituality into my life. And I could never have known that at the time, but I was zooming out from that and seeing how unwell we are as a society, both physically and mentally, at the same time, how divorced we are from spirituality being in our healing systems. And I really think bringing spirituality back into our healing systems is really the key, is going to be the key to everything. So I'd love for the two of you to reflect on how spirituality in your own life has impacted your own healing from trauma or childhood. Missy, let's start with you.
I feel like being connected to something that's greater than yourself helps us so we don't feel alone, because I think loneliness creates anxiety. Feeling alone creates a sense of worry and stress. And I think when we can connect back to ourselves and the idea that we are part of something much bigger than ourselves, that really helps. I also think the idea of knowing that we have spirit guides around us all the time is so comforting to me, because then really I can look at everything that's happening in my life, whether it's quote good or quote bad, as okay, this is happening for me. And when we can get through the lens of how is this happening for me? How is this teaching me? What do I need to look at? And when we talk about healing, it's not that we're broken. It's always a return to our full, authentic selves. So I kind of joke around. I think like, oh gosh, this thing really triggered me. But at the same time, I'm kind of happy. Like, okay, this is showing me this is the thing that I need to heal, that I need. And really to heal means to balance. So this is a place where I'm out of balance. And when we can look through it with curiosity and connection, then we can say, thank you guys for showing me that. What do I need to do to work through that? So not feeling alone, I think. Also community, right? A community like Catherine and I have, community like you have, Casey. That's so important to have that so we're not alone.
Yeah. And for me, I love what Missy said, but I think so much of physical healing comes from models today that assume that we're broken and that we're inherently flawed. And unless we fix ourselves, we need, we're not going to be able to get through life. And so for me, where spirituality plays into my physical healing, my emotional healing, my spiritual healing, which like are all one and the same for me, is understanding that I'm inherently whole and I always have been. Yeah, you're going to go through imbalances and lessons in life. And a lot of those lessons are going to be lived through the physical body, right? And that can be painful and challenging too. But there is never a sense, what spirituality has given me in terms of my health and healing is an understanding that I am divine. My body is perfect just as it is, just through all the struggles it goes through and the pain and challenges. And that so am I. I'm really a child of the universe, and that there is a wholeness that's always been in me. If I can remember that and come back to that, and I have to come back to that like moment after moment, right? Because you go on Instagram and you're like, oh my God, I need 12 supplements. And it's like, no, we're okay. Yeah, maybe you're gonna need care and you're gonna need practitioners throughout your life, but that I'm okay. I'm okay. I am in perfect wholeness already. And if I can just remember that day after day, minute after minute. And I just so agree also with Missy's take on the aspect of just not feeling alone. Like life is scary. Missy and I tend to work with people who struggle with a lot of fear and perfectionism, which is something that Missy and I also, deal with as human beings on this earthly plane. And sometimes it can just feel like, life is just this punishment, one thing after another. Like, why am I uniquely targeted or singled out for the struggle? And then you remember you're not alone. You have the trees and the creek and the birds, and you have your spirit guides and your ancestors. You have things and people and entities and energies that are watching out for you, that want your wholeness and your healing in this path, in this lifetime too. And it's just a little bit like a you can let your shoulders down a little bit. You can relax and remember you're not here to do this all alone. Of course, finding community, whether it's spiritual community or other kinds of communities, creative community, your neighbors, that's such an important part of health and healing too. And then there is the kind of relief of the spiritual community around you too, the beings seen and unseen in nature and from your lineage that want to support you as well. And just takes a little bit of the pressure off, and I think helps you feel like, okay, I can come back. I can remember that wholeness that's inherent in me now.
Love it. Awesome. Someone was asking me the other day, who is my favorite client to work with? And I said, well, that's a long answer because I have a lot of different clients that I love to work with. But at the top of the list is working particularly with women who come in and they're very hard on themselves. They're very pressuring of themselves. They're very perfectionistic. They spend a lot of their life performing, accomplishing, looking for external validation. And through earth medicine and spiritual connection, their perspective of themselves stretches and expands so enormously that it's almost like they're not really working on their perfectionism. It's like they expand beyond the concept of it, and they see themselves through a much bigger lens than they did before. And so all of those tendencies kind of dissolve away. And they kind of see themselves in hindsight. At this, before I had this awareness of my larger sense of self, perspective of myself. So it's one of the most powerful things, watching and witnessing people move into that, especially women right now. So thank you both. Awesome. Let's talk about retreats, the concept of retreats, because I think for a lot of people coming to spirituality, it's a big leap if you're new to it to go from your like regular lived life, right, with laundry and chores and things, to jump straight into having access to these things. So earth medicine is, of course, one way to get a deeper access. But I also think place is another, like being in a different place, in a different energy. So I'd love to open up to you guys. I know a lot of your work takes place on retreat and in different land, connected to different energy. So I'd love for you to share like how you have witnessed that, the sense of place being a very powerful portal into somebody's healing and growth. Catherine, you want to start? Yeah.
I'll start. And I know Missy and I have talked a lot about this because Missy and I co-host retreats, and the land invites us when it wants us to do a retreat there. And we have been blessed enough and lucky enough to host retreats in a couple of different places. Last year, neither of us had ever been to Bali, but we got an invitation to do a retreat there. And we knew that that was the invitation of the land, that the land was hoping that we could hold space for some women there to do what turned out to be a really strong portal for ancestral healing. And our next retreat, which will be in September of 2026, is in Tuscany in Italy. And once again, like, it wasn't that we were like from our heads deciding, oh, we are going to go to Italy for XYZ reasons. An opportunity arose and we took it and are going to Italy because the soil of Tuscany has something to teach us. And it wants us to be there and to bring a certain group of women there as well. And, something that's just been the best part about earth medicine for me is this deeper connection to nature and nature as just a sentient being who is calling you to different places on this beautiful earth to do different work with the different features of the land that's available there. So, like we said in Bali, that ended up being a real strong retreat about ancestral healing. Tuscany seems to us to be about the divine feminine, and coming more into our embodiment of the divine feminine in our physical bodies. And yeah, it's just such a special, thing. And I know for me, I've had personal places, portals, spiritual portals in Northwest Indiana, in Arizona. I live in the Blue Ridge Mountains of Virginia. These places, the land is almost always wanting to offer spiritual initiation. If you can listen to kind of the way it calls to you. And it's such a gift to be able to do that. And then to be able to host retreats in those spaces for sure, is something, because you can bring in other women to land, to touch the soil, to be there in the space. And, then of course we have exercises and programs and communities, but it's really just like, you can just be in the space of the land on retreat and something will shift for you, because the frequency of the land is going to walk you through that shift, just by being there on that place on earth. And I think it's one of the most beautiful things.
Thank you. Missy, how about you?
Yeah, I think every piece of land has a certain energetic frequency that magnetizes in certain things. So if we think about Bali, like, we didn't know until we actually got there, and we could I just felt like right here, like, oh, ancestors, like they magnetize in. And then also with retreats, I think all the right, like always hold that intention that all the right people will actually sign up for that retreat. And that's partly because the land is calling certain energetics. So every frequency of, of each woman who comes in is needed for that healing of that group. And then along with them, also all their ancestors come in, or whoever it is, right, comes in. We're going to Italy, and that really had that divine feminine, sort of that connection to the divine feminine. And I know when we get there, so I can feel all those women coming in that are the right women. And with them are coming in, right, all their guides and the pieces of themselves that are wanting to become whole. Like I could literally see that. All the pieces are following them, behind them, wanting to come whole. So when we land in Italy, it's almost about reassembling. Like that's what I'm seeing. Like every body, spirit is reassembling back into their divine feminine. So kind of like the lost, that's how I see it. The lost pieces of themselves are following them, and they're going to come with us to Italy and then constitute. So I think that's how it works.
I love it so much. I see the same thing in our earth medicine groups too, and immersions too. It's the land, although albeit in the form of a mushroom, calls people together in exactly the right way. It's one of my favorite parts. You guys probably experience this when you're filling a retreat too. It's like one soul calls in the next soul, calls in the next soul, and to watch the themes and the threads take place. Like by the time you kind of close the container, it's so obvious. It's so obvious why they were all brought together in this specific moment to connect with this specific land. Yeah, I love it. I'm so excited to talk about this next topic with you guys. I find it so fascinating. And I know you both work with manifestation in your own work. And so I want to open with a little story that actually just came to me quite recently. So many years ago, I want to say maybe 12 or 15 years ago, I was living in California, and I was at a women's gathering, women's circle, with a woman who just wrote a book on manifestation. And we were, as part of this gathering, we were all given a piece of paper and asked to draw our future home. And I was like, I remember being like, whatever. Like just kind of going through the motions and kind of like this stuff, for whatever it's worth, I'll play along, right? And so I drew my picture of my home and then kind of forgot about it, tucked it in the book. And when I got home that day, I remember looking at it and putting it on the shelf and going, just laughing at my drawing, because in my drawing, this was so me, the house was like teeny tiny, but the pool was enormous. The pool was like the same size as the house. It was like the reality of that was like the highly unlikely. And then it had this big yard that was, again, much bigger than the size of the house. And I kind of tucked it away. And it's moved with me to multiple houses ever since. And as Catherine knows, I just bought my first home in my life recently. And she was kind enough to help me with my feng shui of my new home. And so as you do, I'm unpacking all my boxes and putting my books on my shelf. And I find this manifestation book. And I open it up and I find my drawing of my home. It's my house. It is my house to a T. I live in this tiny, adorable house with an enormous pool and an enormous yard. And my pool is the same size as my house today. And I was like, damn, this stuff does work, as it turns out, right? It was so funny. So I'm super excited to dish on manifestation with you too, because I know that you have brought this into your work in multiple ways. So Catherine, let's start with you.
Yeah, well, I love that story. Drawing is actually really an underrated manifestation tool. And so somewhere in your heart, you knew exactly what you wanted. And I'm a horrible drawer. Like I never evolved past like third grade stick figures or whatever, but I still use it because there's something about it that activates. And I think it's why I like tarot so much too. There's just the imagery of it that activates some part of your subconscious that can really bring into form what you're looking for. But I freaking love manifesting. I mean, I refer to it more as co-creation, because what I really think is that we are here on this planet to create as humans and to be creative. Some of us are going to create life and we're going to have children, and everybody's here to create it could be books, it could be careers, it could be homes, it could be recipes, like we're here to make things. We're here to play on the physical plane. And so when I think about manifesting, for me, it's really it's a massively creative act. And you're not alone in that creative act. You have the guidance and the support of the universe. Your job as a human doing your manifesting or co-creating or goal setting or whatever you want to call it is to find the vision that's truest on your heart. So one of the things that I had to really learn in my path of like manifesting and co-creating was that I used to really try to manifest from a place of ego. Oh, I want to make this kind of salary. Oh, I want this kind of title at my job. Oh, I want this condo in this neighborhood, or a luxury purse or whatever. And you can definitely manifest those things, but over time what I understood is that manifesting from soul and heart is really kind of the way to go. And then when you do that and you hold that vision of like, what is authentically most on your heart? Like, forget reality, forget logic, forget money, forget all the trappings, that we have to deal with in our human world. Really just give yourself permission to like have the dream, don't say it's not real or I don't have that kind of money. Just let that all drop for 5 minutes, right? Like play like a child used to play. Dream the biggest dream you could have. What's truly on your heart, And it may be that you want to, I don't know, own a retreat center in Portugal, but right now you're an accountant in Seattle. And like, that's okay. That's what we're talking about. Like this kind of dream that's on your heart. And sometimes it's going to be in the field of your purpose work, your career. Sometimes it will be in home, like I'm a feng shui consultant. And so I manifested this 300-year-old log cabin in in the Blue Ridge Mountains that I live in. That is one of my biggest feng shui teachers. Sometimes it's going to be in love relationships, friendship. I feel like friendship is like where a lot of people are really wanting to put their soul energy this year, is like finding those authentic, spiritual, like just friendships and communities and people. So it can be in any topic of life, but it's just, you have to do this self-reflection to know yourself, to know what's really on your heart. And so, when you start learning about manifesting or co-creating, it might be like, oh, you got to keep a high vibe or whatever, kind of the things that you have to read about, or, oh, you got to do these affirmations. For me, the act of co-creation starts with knowing myself and knowing what I want, me and me alone, not what my family thinks I should want out of life, not what society tells me that I should be wanting or creating in this lifetime. What does the creative soul inside of me want to build while I'm here on this earth? And there's going to be multiple iterations of that, right? What you want to manifest in your 20s is going to be different from what you want to manifest in your 40s or your 70s. And that's okay. Let it iterate and evolve. We're going to go through many acts of co-creation in this lifetime. But just for me, it just always starts with this act of like, if I could forget the trappings of the physical world, if I could forget my conditioning and my fear and my concerns about what people are going to think of me, what is on my heart to create? And when you can admit that to yourself, because sometimes it's really scary to just even own what you actually want. But when you can tell yourself, I actually do have this dream of being a retreat owner in Portugal or whatever it is, and you can write that down and you say it out loud, then the universe hears you, because the universe operates in the co-creative model that I believe in. The universe operates on consent, and it's not going to start the co-creation process until you say out loud, I want to be a retreat owner in Portugal, or whatever. I just keep using that as an example. And then once you admit it to yourself, once you write it down in your journal, once you tell a friend, or, just say it out loud to the universe, then resources start coming in and the building process begins. And it's so much fun. And I think we can get so serious about manifestation and, other than knowing yourself and, just like admitting what's on your heart, let yourself have fun, think about children and playing and being creative. That's the kind of energy that I think everybody should be bringing to manifestation.
Thank you. Missy.
I love that. I love manifestation. So I also agree it's co-creation. It's what's natural to us. We're all co-creators. But I look at it this way. If this is where we are, okay, I don't know if everybody, okay, so you can imagine on one hand, this is where we are. And on your other hand, this is what you want to manifest. Our work is, how do we bring those two together? And when I look at it, there's always a line of light that goes between where you are now and what you want to manifest. And that that line of light is filled with, I would say, blocks or limiting beliefs. And the reason, so I'm all about the power of beliefs. That's all of my work, because really what you believe forms the foundation of your reality, because what you believe creates a thought creates an emotion creates a response, how you respond to the outside world, then that creates your outer reality. So to me, working with the power of your beliefs is the fastest way to get what you want to manifest. So looking at that line of light in between, you want all those lines to be moving in the same direction toward your manifestation. But when we have limiting beliefs in the way, it looks like lines of light going, like cutting through, like cross currents. So it looks all crazy, right? So we want to get those lines going in the same direction. And part of that is looking at what you believe. That's why affirmations alone don't work, because you can say as many affirmations as you want, but if there's a part of you that doesn't believe that, it's not going to work at all. So looking at what you believe is so important. And when I look at those beliefs, they usually fall into two camps. It's either worthiness, like I'm not worthy to have this manifestation, or I'm not safe, right? It's a safety thing. Like I'm not safe to have it. And also what Catherine talked about is claiming your desire. Like I actually want this thing, right? So there's all these pieces we want to work through. And that's where we get into co-creation, because the minute, as Catherine said, we vocalize, we say, this is what I want, then the universe is like, cool, like we're in partnership together. Okay, great, Missy, you want that thing? I'm going to show you right now what you believe. and and that's the trigger. And that's where you need to work next.
Thank you. Yeah, Catherine.
Yeah, well, something just came to me as Missy was talking too. And also I'm a tarot reader. So if I'm going to do a podcast and I'm going to talk to somebody, I'm drawing some tarot cards beforehand. And I don't always know what they mean. But for this conversation, I drew the 10 of Cups and the 10 of Pentacles. I'll describe them for people who don't know tarot, but the 10 of Cups is kind of a wish fulfillment card. It shows a beautiful set of 10 golden cups in a rainbow across the sky as a family waves and children dance on a beautiful creek. The 10 of Pentacles is very much this card of intergenerational abundance. You have this whole set of family. There's like an elder and then some parents and children and dogs, and they're just like amongst all these coins in this beautiful city. They're both kind of wish fulfillment cards. And what came to me on this topic of co-creation and manifestation is that you can trust the desires on your heart. Like you can trust the dreams that you have. I think where people go wrong in manifestation or co-creation is thinking that they're silly little girls for having these big dreams on their heart, and they should be realistic and they should be logical. And that the seeds of desire on their heart are not instructions, that they're temptations, and they've got to squash them down because they're selfish if they focus on those. And in the act of co-creation, I really just want to encourage you, and I think these two tarot cards here today, again, the 10 of Cups and the 10 of Pentacles, are here to say that the seeds of desire on your heart aren't temptations, they're instructions for co-creation. They're not there for no reason, they're there as kind of an operating manual. We each have a different set of desires on our hearts, right? Like Casey worked to manifest her beautiful home with a giant pool. And I would never want a pool in my yard. I'd love to come visit you though, Casey. But like what comes on my heart to manifest in a home is going to be a different version than what Casey wants or than what Missy wants. And it's just, please trust what's on your heart when it comes to manifesting and co-creation. It's not a mistake. And, I know it can be hard to believe in that. A lot of us have this conditioning of, oh, I must be serious. I must be a practical woman, not a silly little girl. And I want to be like, be the silly little girl. Like she has some big dreams, and those dreams are truth, and it is okay to follow them.
Outstanding, both of you. Thank you. Thank you. I've really learned so much witnessing people in their earth medicine journey is how healing is interconnected with manifestation. Because once you heal, your nervous system has so much more capacity while you're also releasing so much fear simultaneously. And all of a sudden it's like, oh, I want more. I will have more for this lifetime because I have such a greater capacity now and less fear of what that'll actually mean when I do. Yeah, I love it. Love it so much. So for listeners, I know some people might be listening and go, feng shui, I don't know what that is. And clairvoyance, I don't know what that is, right? So I'd love to highlight those gifts that you have, the specific work that you do. Catherine, let's start with you. I've had the pleasure of working with Catherine on a couple of the homes that I lived in. And I'd love for you to share with listeners who might be new to feng shui what feng shui is. And also, if you could, I found the two top things for me to shift things pretty immediately was my front door, working around my front door, any tips you have for those folks, and also command position and what that means. So
Yes. Okay. Well, feng shui is a thousands-year-old practice that came to us from ancient China, and it originally started as a land practice. So it's actually kind of like an earth medicine, earth intuitive practice because the practitioners of feng shui were using it to find what were the ideal sites for palaces and tombs for emperors at the time. And then it started to translate to people's homes. So what were the ideal energies, the ideal layouts, the ideal setups of a physical space that you would be in order to call in the best sort of flow of energy into your life. And for me, feng shui is such an important practice because to me, I believe that our homes are energetic projections of our subconscious. And so the homes that we're in show us all these sorts of things. They show us our beliefs. They show us how the flow of energy is coming into our life. A block, a pile of clutter in your bedroom is more than just a pile of clutter. It might be kind of a belief that you hold about yourself or your ability to take care of yourself in some ways. And so really for me, the art and practice of feng shui is really understanding your home as a map to your own beliefs. And it's such a beautiful, easeful practice. I love feng shui because, if you live in a space, and it doesn't matter if you rent a room from somebody or you live in a studio apartment or you live in a 12-bedroom mansion, like wherever you are, you can work with the art of feng shui in your home. And yes, you have correctly named two of the most important aspects of feng shui. So feng shui is such a layered practice. We could certainly talk about it, all day and not even really be able to scratch the surface. But two of the easiest ways anybody can get started working with their home are looking at their actual front door. So the front door, not the door that you use the most, not the garage door you enter in, the architecturally designed and intended front door. This is the mouth. When we're working with feng shui, we're working with qi or life force energy. And one of the things in feng shui we want to try to do is bring as much qi into our home as we can, because qi carries on it opportunities and abundance and flow. And the front door is also known as the mouth of qi. It is where everything enters into the home. And so there's plenty of people, and this is something I didn't really understand until I started working in feng shui. There's plenty of people who never use their front door ever. They have a preferred side door or they only use the garage door. And right there, the lowest hanging fruit you can do in feng shui is to start to use your front door regularly. Beyond that, and so you don't have to make it your primary door. Just go walk your dog out the front door or go check the mail out your front door about once a day. Or just in the morning when you're having your cup of coffee, just open the front door in your bathrobe and just imagine the flow of energy coming in. And you can also, you can like kind of spice up your front door. You can hang a wreath. You can wash down the door. You can hang a welcome mat. You can make it look attractive because you also want to like bring qi in through the quality of beauty of your front door too. And you just also want to make sure the path is clear. Like, is there shrubbery that's overgrowing the front door? Or is there, a ton of, maybe you have children and there's a ton of toys always in front of the front door. Just clear that path regularly. And as you do, just imagine that you're calling qi in. So that's the front door. And then the second thing you referred to is command position. And that is putting, especially, there's three things in your home you want to be in command position if you can. And that is your bed, your desk, and your stove. And command position, the easiest way to describe it is imagine like a mob boss who goes to sit in a restaurant. He always picks the table that has his back is to the wall, and he can survey the entire restaurant, including the front door of the restaurant, just in front of him. So he has easy access to seeing everything that's in front of him, and he knows that his back is protected. And so when you do, say, your desk in command position, what you're doing ideally is you're putting your desk in such a position like kind of like a CEO would sit. Your back is to the wall, and your desk should be positioned in such a way that you can see the entrance to your room quite easily. And you do this, there's an energetic aspect to this, but there's also like a very practical nervous system aspect to this. The energetic aspect is you're saying to the universe, I will face my life. I will see opportunities. I will take up space, right? Because like the biggest thing I hear from people when they don't want to go into command position is, oh, it just takes up too much space in the room. And I'm like, yeah, that's the point. We want to take up space in our lives. We want to take up space in our careers. We want to say, I'm ready to receive opportunities. But there's also this aspect of the nervous system, like years and years of having your back to a door can just feel like you're a little bit on edge. Even if you're home alone and you know you're safe, there's just, if you cannot see the front door, you're always going to just have your heckles up a little bit, right? Like you're just always going to be like, is anybody coming in behind me? And so you bring in ease to your nervous system when you turn to face the door, when you position your desk such that you can always see who's entering the door. And there, in that sort of ease, your nervous system grounds, it relaxes a little bit. And yeah, and you just, the most magical things happen, when you just attend to your front door, and if you can, put yourself into command position.
Thank you. So fun. And I can attest to results on all those things. Yeah, beautiful. Missy, I would love for you to share with folks who are healing, like what is clairvoyance or, body intelligence when it comes to our spirituality?
Yeah, so everybody has a clair, which is a spiritual gift. And clairvoyance just means clear sight. So for me, clairvoyance means I can see your ancestors. I can see your inner children, your inner teens. I can see spirit guides. So I can see they play out as stories or like a movie, or it might be a snapshot. So that's how it is for me. It could be different for other people who are clairvoyant, but there's actually 8 clairs. So, it's kind of like, I like to think of it as like we were taught the 5 senses, like in school, but there's actually 8 other senses that are just as meaningful and real as those 5 senses that we were taught. So I think one thing that can happen is people think, well, I can't see things, so that means, I don't know, I don't have any gifts. But that's not true at all. That's just the one of 8, right? You can hear, you can taste, you can smell. It's through touch. It's just like a knowing in your body. And in my work, I found that all people have at least 2. And it can kind of change over time. And it's where our guides want us to focus on now. So right now, maybe my strongest is clairvoyance and claircognizance. It's that knowing. I just know that thing, right? But maybe those might die down as new gifts want to emerge and want me to work on them. So that's the fun thing. Everybody has those gifts.
Love it. Love it. It's so affirming. And one of the things I love about microdosing practice is the medicine speaks to each person so uniquely, and it's often tied to what their gift is. Yeah. So someone will start microdosing, all of a sudden they can't stop talking and expressing or singing or writing. And so like that is that like lighting up that gift. Other people, it'll be very physical. They'll feel a lot of physical sensation, energetic movement in their body. And so you can see kind of the early instincts that they've always had kind of coming back online, these codes kind of coming back online. Yeah.
I think that's kind of speaking to what you were talking about, because I think earth medicine opens that heart chakra. So when we open the heart, then we feel safer and more worthy of our natural gifts and expressing those. And also, I think it ties to when you were talking about manifestation, that capacity to hold. When we open the heart chakra, we're actually almost pushing our aura out bigger so we can actually hold those manifestations that we want and also our gifts. So there's some connection there with earth medicine, opening up the space or the capacity to hold, as you said.
Thank you. Beautiful. I'd love to open it up to you both to, we're in quite a year. The fourth turning has officially begun. And, we're in this time of profound change. And I think my sense from witnessing people, I've now been in the healing arts, this will be my 31st year. I think this year, more than any other, all of our practices that connect us to spirit, connect us to source, are going to be more important than ever that we have that in the years ahead. Cultivating that, opening to that, leaning on that sometimes. So I'd love to just open it up to you guys based on all your own communities and the clients you're supporting, is advice or insight as to moving through this deeply transformative time that we're in. Catherine, let's start with you.
Yeah, I was thinking about this topic because there's so much to hold right now. And what Missy and I see in our particular community, and I'm sure you see it across yours too, is that one of the things we're being challenged with this year is to hold bigger and bigger energies and bigger emotions, higher highs and lower lows. And so there's so many things that one could do. For me, some of the things are very basic. So in addition to doing tarot and feng shui, I'm also a health coach in training and a nutritional therapist practitioner. And one of the things is looking at like your intake and the grounding. So like, are you, sometimes my clients, like they don't eat breakfast and they have 4 cups of coffee. And I'm like, okay, like that's just not, that's not going to help you hold the bigger and bigger things. So like, what is the element of nourishment that you're bringing into your life? And there's nourishment of so many things, nourishment of your media diet or your friendship connections, but there's also just nourishment. Are you eating a breakfast that's going to make you feel really full and really grounded and give you energy to go throughout the day? Can you reduce caffeine? Because that can be something that we over rely on, and it can really spin us out a little bit too much. And so there are those elements of like, can you just nourish yourself? Can you ground yourself? Literally, are you spending any time outside, like under the sun, your feet on the grass? Like those things they can sound almost too simple. Like, well, that can't really make a difference. But I challenge you to try them, to spend 5 minutes outside. We're here in spring. It's finally getting warmer in the Northern Hemisphere. Can you go outside for just 5 or 10 minutes and just sit with the grass and the sun on your skin and see how that grounds you? So for me, a lot of the practices of how I hold myself are these basic, like body-based practices, like eating enough, going outside, being in nature. And then, of course, one thing I also rely on a lot is nervous system regulation. And my favorite way of regulating my nervous system is through a journaling practice called Journal Speak, which is created by a therapist named Nicole Sachs. And she does it. The origination of Journal Speak came for helping people deal with chronic pain systems that had a nervous system dysregulation base to them. And so I highly recommend you check out her work. She has a book called Mind Your Body, and her podcast is called The Cure for Chronic Pain. So Journal Speak can really be a beautiful healing tool for people who are struggling with chronic pain. And for me, it has become a deeply grounding nervous system practice. It's simply the practice of, it's sort of a rage on the page journaling practice. You say anything and everything about whatever's going on in your life, or past stressors and traumas, or current triggering situations. You really just journal in sort of an unhinged, unleashed sort of way, which is very freeing. But it helps regulate your nervous system because you're not repressing any of your emotions. It's really like an emotional processing, therapeutic journaling practice. And for me, that's one of the tools I'm really relying on in this time.
Fantastic. Rage on the page.
Yes.
I think I'm going to start carrying notebooks in my glove compartment. Hand them out on the 95. Yeah. Excellent. Missy, how about you?
I think it's looking at where you're putting your energy. So in that way, I mean, what is draining you, taking your energy out, and how are you refilling the energy? So part of that is boundaries, like being aware of, well, maybe I don't want to have lunch with that friend, because I actually feel drained when I leave, right? So really having boundaries around your energy. And also I have a lot of practices where I refill it back in. So those are things for me like taking a walk. It could be, I'm big into my Epsom salt baths, right? As a way to release energy. Or if you're near the ocean, getting near the ocean. But also that means being really aware of my own emotions, because emotions, we want to get them out. So Catherine talks about journal speak to get it out. But there's other ways too. When we do energy clearing exercises, when we shout and we scream, when we cry, we release emotions. Talking to a friend or a therapist, release journaling, all of that. Sweating, actually, those types of things release emotions. So releasing, being aware of where I'm feeling a lot of emotions and how can I get them out so they don't stay trapped in my body. That's really big. Boundaries are really big. And just even also, Catherine touched on this, your spiritual food. Like, what are you bringing in? Are you watching the news? Maybe the news has a lot of fear for you. So saying, no, that's not for me. And maybe there's another way you can be informed that's not so hard on your system. Or maybe it's gossip with friends. Like maybe that really is soul crushing or something. So being able to say no, but being very aware. What are you reading? What music are you listening to? What are you bringing into your field? And then the things that don't align, how can you shake it out or get it out of the body?
Beautiful. All of them. Thank you. I was walking my dog this morning and my guide was just chattering away. It's very present. So I was like, while you're here, I have a question. So I kind of posed this question to her and she said, right now, she said, all of you humans underestimate the role of humor in transformation and transforming what we would like to see change and also within ourselves and our own energy. She was saying humans are so funny. Not all beings are as funny as humans are, and the capacity for humor. So I really appreciated that, because it is when we're laughter, when we're in joy, when we're in play, when we're in bliss, we are in a different resonance. We are kind of in a higher octave and can move energy similarly too. So speaking of, please go follow Catherine on Instagram. She is one of my favorite people to follow, and absolutely hilarious. Best memes on the gram. I think.
You gotta laugh, like what else is there to do sometimes? And I miss being in your program because I miss hearing from your guide. I feel like you're such a talented channeler, Casey. Like, your spirit guide has such wisdom too, but I totally agree with her. Like there's a heaviness in this world right now. We can all acknowledge that there's a lot of anger and rage, and rightfully so. And I feel it, and I feel the fear every day too. And their humor it's such a gift. Like it's one of these creative abilities that humans have to make these beautiful jokes and connections and communities and laughter with one another, and like have some silliness too. Not as a way to put our heads in the sand about anything, but simply as a way to regulate ourselves and to create deeper connections with one another as well.
And I also think that observer position, right, that a lot of us talk about, like my guides are always like, get up there, Missy. Like when I'm so deep and like, I can't believe this thing is happening, then they remind me, fly up there. And so you can imagine, if you're a bird on a wire and you're observing what's happening, it just takes you out of the heaviness and the emotion, and that can give our nervous system a break, but it can also let us come up with different solutions and different ways of seeing things when we're not so stuck in the density of it. That's like another really great tool.
Thank you. Thank you both so much. Yeah, for being here today and for your work in the world. Appreciate you both so much. For folks who want to find you, learn more about your retreats in your community, where are you on Instagram, all those places? Can you share where folks can find you?
Yeah, well, Missy and I co-host a podcast and a membership called Trust the Universe with Missy and Catherine. So you can find both of us in that space. And we have a retreat coming up in September 2026 in Tuscany, Italy. It's called the Luminous Retreat. For me, I'm on Instagram at Catherine Andrews, and I have a podcast and a Substack called The New Sensitive.
Fabulous. Missy?
And you can find me on Instagram. It's just at Missy Energy Healing. And then also my website is the same thing, missyenergyhealing.com.
Oh, thank you both so much for being here together. Always a treat to be with you.
Thank
Yes.
you, Casey.
This was
So
pure
fun.
delight. Thank you.
Bye, everybody. We'll see you back soon.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to the Microdosing for Healing podcast. Ready to take the next step? Please visit us online at microdosingforhealing.com. There you'll find lots of information about our global community, professional training programs, and upcoming immersions. See you there.